Yeah, oh yeah, Roy found
As long as I've been alive.
Because Roy was, I mean, your dad now. All right, we're going to call to order the Whitley County Board of Zoning Appeals, the regular meeting of Tuesday, April 23rd, 2024. Well, the roll call, please.
Jack Green.
Here.
Kelley Sheiss.
Here.
Danny Wilkinson.
Here.
Doug Wright.
Here.
And Joe Wolf.
Here. Okay, board, we received, I think it was here tonight, a copy of the minutes of our last meeting, which was March 26th, 2024. Does anyone see any additions or corrections? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve them as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
I'll second that.
Moved by Joe, seconded by Jack, that we approve the minutes of our last regular meeting, which was March 26, 2024. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, they're approved 5-0, with all attending members voting in favor of the minutes. Okay, at this time, we need to administer an oath. If you're a petitioner and are going to speak, if you're a friend and going to speak, if you're in opposition and think you may speak, if you think you may speak for any reason, you need to stand at this time, and our attorney, Liz Deckard, will swear you in. If you're a petitioner and think you may speak, you need to stand up, please.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that any statements you make tonight before the board will be the truth? If so, state I do.
All right, thank you. I don't believe we have any old business at this time. We'll get right into new business. Give you an idea how we run the meeting. We'll read your petition. Then the staff will give the staff report. Then we'll ask you to come to the podium, state your name and address and what it is you'd like to do. Okay, we'll get into the first petition. The first petition is petition 24W variance 6, filed by John and Beth Manning, owners of the subject property, who are requesting a development standards variance of the required front setback for construction of a new deck on the property located at 2042 East Wilcken Road in Section 11 of Thorncreek Township. The property is currently improved with a dwelling and attached garage. Staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So going to the staff report here. This is located on Wilcken Road, zoned LR Lake Residential. What is being proposed is to construct a deck, which would replace the existing patio deck on the lake side of the house. This is a lakefront property, so your front and rear setbacks are of course switched. So your lakeside is your front setback. The proposed setback is approximately 17 feet. Code then requires, of course, 35 feet. We did do the averaging, which is allowed under the code for front setbacks in developed areas. And due to a couple properties to the north being set back quite a distance, the average front setback is only 34 feet. So it actually only would gain them about 1 foot. Only considering the properties to the south, it actually winds up being, what's that, approximately 22 feet. Those couple properties, as we've had cases before, did kind of skew that average. So then the requested variance is 18 feet from that 35 feet. Aerial view here, highlighted in blue, is the subject property. In case you're interested, some of these aerials are actually from last month, from our new flight that was done in March. This is one of them. Oblique view, you can see the area in question is this existing deck here would be covered over with what's being proposed, which is shown on the survey plot plan. And the red line area is the area being constructed with that deck. This is a pretty common example of a lake variance we see in and out. Again, if it weren't for those couple properties skewing the average, this would have been very close to meeting that average setback the way it was. So very common structure, doesn't seem to be any likely injury to public health, safety, and moral, and of course general welfare is based on whether there is specific practical difficulties. I do suggest that there are, because of this being in line with the existing house, as well as being in line with many of the houses in the area, and average would have been used or could have been used except for those couple of properties that skewed it. So, any questions for me?
All right, petitioner, the Mannings or the representative. Name and address and what did you like to do, please?
Sure. My name is John Manning. I live at 2042 East Wilcken Road. My wife and I would like to remodel our current deck. We would like to move 3 feet further into that setback to allow a walkway between the two decks on each side. It's separated by a sunroom right now. We'd like that 3-foot area for a walkway, just so both decks are then connected with one larger deck. We want to do a remodel with composite decking and put some railings up.
Questions, board of the petitioner? Any questions, board? Anyone here in opposition to this petition? Anyone with opposition? Any questions? There's no opposition. Any further discussion, board? Any questions? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor of petition 24W variance 6 filed by John and Beth Manning, all those in favor signify raising your right hand. All those opposed? It's approved 5-0 with all attending members voting in favor. All right, thank you. Once your petition's done, you're free to leave if you so desire. The next petition under new business is petition 24W variance 7 filed by Garry and Teresa Ingram, owners of the subject property, who are requesting development standard variance of the lot depth standard for a proposed subdivision of the subject property. The property is located at 3460 West.
East
3460 East.
Yeah.
500 North in section 13 of Thorncreek Township. The proposed split property is on the south side of the parent tract. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So yes, this is on east, well, the address of the parent property is based on 500 North because that's where the house is, but the subject split is actually fronting onto 350 East, that's a few hundred feet south of that intersection. Zoned AG agricultural, the overall property is 15 acres. What is being proposed is to split approximately 4 acres from the south side of the parent tract. And importantly, it's the entire, preferred to be the entire depth of the property. The proposal is 225 feet wide to be on septic. Sewer may be available. It runs along 350, but it may not have to be connected. That's something for the health department to be figured out. But because it potentially is available, the zoning code could allow for as little, as narrow as 100-foot width, if one's sure. It's not what's being proposed, but for the sake of argument, since we're looking at a variance, I'm putting it out there that that could be the lower end. The overall depth of the lot is approximately 781 feet. The code development standards, AG agricultural, it's the only district that has a maximum lot width to depth ratio, and that ratio is 3. Basically, you're allowed a depth of a lot up to 3 times its width. So if that lot is 100 feet wide, you're allowed 300 foot in depth per the code. The proposed ratios at 225 feet wide would be about approximately 3.47. At 100 feet wide, of course, that's 7.81. So both would be in need of variance if need be, if going forward. This is a 2022 aerial showing the overall subject tract as well as the overall area. Note that the property to the immediate west was split at some point, I forget the exact year, but it also came from the same overall 80-acre parent tract from 1992. Okay, it was split in 92, which does predate the existing code, but it has a 3.35 ratio. So you can see that its length is more than 3 times its width as well. And then these potentially have others, but this one was the one that I calculated in the staff report. Going to the closer view, so you can see what is being proposed is approximately that red rectangle, approximately 225 feet wide, which yields roughly a 4-acre parcel. If you wound up following the code, it creates a parcel that's would end right about there. So leaving this basically dangling remainder off of this northern parent tract, if it were to happen. Looking at the 100-foot wide, which could be possible under the code, the code minimum with sewer, that's what's shown in blue. Again, not what is being proposed, but for the sake of reference and sake of argument. And that would be the 7.81 ratio. So this, we kind of had this discussion last month a little bit. This is the case in point for your action to be taken. As we discussed last month, not sure exactly how to apply this standard other than just on face value of width versus depth. Not exactly sure the rationale behind it. I gave some commentary there in the review criteria for your consideration. The big thing is in this case, if you had a depth that was compliant at 3, ratio of 3 to 1, you wind up, as I said, you wind up having with the 225-foot wide version, you have an area that's a little over 100-foot wide. That's a remainder, and the 100 is quite a bit, would come out to be about there. Would be a little more usable remainder, perhaps, in some ways, but still a remainder that's not really what is being proposed, just to take that slice off the steps in. Again, staff does kind of feel like there are practical difficulties because of the geometry of the parent tract and what is left. So, and in the absence of further guidance on what the purpose of the code was, I could not find any rationale other than this just appeared. I couldn't find any documentation other than this code just appeared in the 2006 zoning code. That's what I have to say about it. So any questions?
So is requesting the 225 feet, is that correct?
That is the proposal. If you want to consider the variance to be either, that I leave that up to you. If you want to make it only the 225, so the 3 point, whatever that ratio is, 3.47, you can do that, or you could take the 100 because the code could allow for that, which would be a 7.81 ratio.
The 100 is for the sewer, the
Yes,
central sewer?
Yep.
You can still have the central sewer on the full 225 feet?
correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
this gives you the latitude of setting option. The 2.5. Because that's the linear code, linear.
Okay.
Garry Ingram, 3460 East, 500 North.
Okay.
And if you look at that image there, there's another problem. It's not just about geometric symmetry. If you look to the top left there, see that wooded area? If I cut off that half acre in the back of that red line, I'm actually isolating that property because that hollow there is about 20 feet deep. However, it's of great value to my grandson who's going to get this. That half acre is very usable. It's high ground. But if I'd cut it off, stay within your code, I wouldn't have access to that anyway. It'd be very difficult to get to.
So you're requesting a 225-foot frontage all the way back to your lot line?
At the existing line, that's about 781.4. Yeah,
I don't think there's any problem.
that's 4 acres, what it is. Just a touch over, in fact, went 225. In fact, 4 acres was 223 and a half. Then went 225 just in case there was a possibility of septic.
We'll just stay up there. Anyone here in opposition? Anyone in opposition? Any questions? There's no opposition. Okay, board, any questions, petitioner? You're requesting the full 4 acres, the 225 foot, all the way back to your property line. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's my intention at the moment.
Okay.
If you want to give me some latitude and say I can drop it to 200, you can do that if you'd like, if that's acceptable to you. But I intend to do 225. But if you don't give me some latitude, you know,
Could you
leave that for me.
propose maximum 200?
It hasn't been surveyed yet.
Are you asking us if you could go 200 foot instead of the 225? Is that what you're asking us?
I have no intentions of going less than 200. And Brent and I talked about it. We're just talking about latitude on the variance. But yeah, I intend to go 225. If you wanted to make that a little higher, like, so I drop down to 200, it'd be fine by me.
Because this is about a ratio number, the ratio for the 200 foot wide is approximately 3.9. So if you wanted to approve up to a 4, that is a nice round number.
Yes, that's what I was trying to say.
Well,
Or you saying you want us to approve a ratio, not the width?
Well, that's what it is in your regulation.
Right. The code standard being varied is the ratio maximum of 3 to 1, lot depth to width. So that should be what your variance is based on.
Board, you have?
So we don't have to change the 225, we could just say the ratio of 4,
I think that should
and
work.
that gives him some flexibility.
4 to 1 would give me flexibility. Yes, ma'am.
Makes sense.
Any discussion, board, on the ratio versus just the full 225? This is a variance. We can vote without a motion, or if you want to. So what are we voting on? If we vote without if we vote on it just as presented, where are we at? 225 feet?
225 feet, which is a 3.47 ratio.
So you need a motion to put the 4.
If you
That's
would.
what I thought.
So I
It
would
makes sense to give a little room to move, right? And 3.47, I don't know that it's exactly 781.44.
Are you planning on developing any more of that?
Pardon me?
Are you planning on developing any more?
No, I don't. I'll be down to 11 acres.
That's why I'm asking, because you're asking for latitude, which leads me to believe that you want to develop more. But that's my opinion.
No, not that particular
That's
lot.
the question I wanted to ask first.
No, that particular lot.
I move we approve 24W variance 7 from Garry and Teresa Ingram for the development standards for ag with revision of the lot depth to width ratio of 4.0.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Been moved by Kelley, seconded by Jack, that we approve petition 24W variance 7 and change the ag ratio to 4.0. Is that good enough, board, staff?
Yep.
Any further discussion? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? All right,
Thanks, sir.
approved 5-0 with all 10 members voting in favor.
And I do understand that if septic is an option, you have to 2.5. That's another one.
Okay, okay. The next petition is petition 24 WSE5 filed by Michelle Linsky, owner of the subject property, who is requesting a special exception approval for a secondary dwelling unit on the property located at 4717 South, 700 East in section 36 of Union Township. The property is currently improved with a dwelling and outbuildings. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is on South 700 East in Union Township, zoned AG agricultural. Overall size is just over 11 acres. What is being requested is a special exception for secondary dwelling unit. What is being proposed is to construct a new home on the property to the east of the existing dwelling while retaining the existing dwelling for a indeterminate amount of time. In that time, it could be possible that family members, visiting family members, for example, would occupy it. It may be used for storage, kind of open-ended. Long-term, though, the existing dwelling would be demolished at some point. We've had cases similar to this where it was a defined time frame where a new home would be built, existing home would be demolished within 6 months or a year or something like that. You guys have not seen that because that's something that we have been able to administratively say as a condition of permit issuance, demolish the home and you avoid having two homes, like two dwelling units on one property. But because of the uncertainty or indefinite time frame and the potential for maybe family members to use that home while it still stands, that's why it's coming before you as a secondary dwelling unit tonight. So this outlined in blue is the subject property. The area in question and home in question is down here. And then the proposed site plan, which is a rough site plan at this point, but gets the point across. The drawn in areas are the proposed new home and the proposed outbuilding as well. I forget which one is which, but one is a home and one's an outbuilding. And then again, the existing home is located right here, which long-term would be demolished. So suggested conditions, these are just the standard conditions that we typically attach with any of our secondary dwelling units, that is granted as presented, compliance with any recommendations of the health department. That's typically when we have new septic systems. If in this case, if there are any concerns about the living conditions of what is essentially a structure to be torn down, then that could come into play. And then finally, the standard condition regarding the of that secondary dwelling unit as well. Any questions for me?
So we're just approving the secondary dwelling, not the outbuilding? Or is that all combined?
It's just the secondary dwelling unit. And in this case, it's actually the existing dwelling that's proposed as the secondary.
All right, petitioner, your representative.
Hello,
No,
I'm Michelle Linsky. I currently live at 7519 Tattersall Circle in in Fort Wayne, Indiana. The property that we're talking about, my grandparents owned for 55 years and passed away in the last couple of years, sorry. The land was originally over 30 acres. It has been split since their passing in the estate. Half of it, or 20 some acres, went to my uncle who is here, and these 11 acres went to my mom. My mom then, because me and my family would like to live on the property, my mom did not want to move onto the property where she's established. She has decided she didn't want to uproot. But we want it to stay in the family. The current property right now, it's still got my grandparents' personal property in it. It's still being gone through. It's still being, I'm not trying to push my mom in the time frame to get that done. So that is why we are asking for permission to go ahead and build and put a pole barn. Right now, I'm guessing is going to be about 60 by 40. The house is probably, we're looking at a barnuminium type style. Again, probably 80 by 50 potentially, not exactly sure how that's going to lay out there. Planning on doing new septic, new well, all of that out there. The main thing is that the house right now, I don't want to have to tear down. It's got heat, it's got everything to keep the possessions the way that they are until my mom has time to go through them. At that time, I don't really know long-term with the property if there's a chance of us being able to get some things done. And right now I have a household of 7. My oldest daughter and my grandchild who's autistic lives with us. And it might be something that eventually they could move in and have something on the property with us. It may be something that gets turned into a storage, or if we absolutely have to down the road, it may be something that we have to look at demolishing. But that's why the request is being made and where the history is of it.
so who's gonna live in this new construction?
My 7 household family,
You are.
yes. So I have me, my boyfriend. Okay. It's kind of a multi-generational, so that's why sometimes people look at me and it's like, you know. So.
For your extension. Any other questions, board? Anyone in opposition? Boyfriend? No. Anyone in opposition? Any questions? Okay, board. Any?
He has a question, sir.
Yes, sir. Have a seat here in front of me. State your name, sir, and what you'd like to know.
My name is Charles Atchison. I live at 4655 South, 700 East. I'm real close to that property. One of my questions is to verify what you were saying about septic tanks and wells. It's a new structure. That has to be included. Is that correct?
Correct. The health department will require a septic system. I'm pretty sure a new septic system and likely a new well.
Okay. And then, okay. And that would, new septic systems code and all that stuff.
Yep, that would be, yeah, whatever the soil quality is would dictate what type of septic system. So the health department is pretty diligent about making sure that happens.
Okay. And then the other question, I don't know quite how to phrase that, or sort of jumping around on when the old structure be torn down, if it would, all this, is there a time limit on that, or how does that work?
That would be something for the board to give consideration to, whether you want to leave it open-ended or have some sort of deadline to figure out what to do with. I didn't suggest one, but it might be something you want to consider.
Okay. We'll discuss that.
Okay. Yeah, that's just something I want information on.
Okay.
It doesn't make me any difference, but,
Okay.
you know, things can get drug out.
And the suggested conditions, the one does have compliance with recommendation of the health department, so that would fall under septic well would fall under
Right.
that condition.
Yep.
And just, I have all planned, I getting a new well and something. That is, just so you know, that is completely part of the plan. Thank you.
And the home, the structure you're planning on building is what you call
A barnuminium?
a barnuminium. That's a whole building with, considered as a house, correct? Okay. And that will be the first thing you build?
No, the first thing will be the pole barn. We have an engraving, home engraving we do. We're gonna do half of it, home engraving. The other half will be, we're calling like our outdoor, indoor. Right now, you know, there's the RVs there. We go out there, we cook out there,
Yes.
we do all the time. So part of that building is going to be a family spot for my household with my grandson, a play, like sensory room and stuff like that out there for him. So, and then we plan on connecting the two with kind of a like park area, like fencing and some stuff for my grandson
Okay.
between the two.
Okay, at this time, I have no further questions or
Okay.
comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Any other questions? Okay.
I'm Erica Dowdy and I live at 4925 South 700 East. My property is 2 properties down from where this is located. And I just am questioning about the barn. You said an engraving business?
It's
that
out of our
correct?
home. It's like an
Okay.
online. It's
Okay,
not
so that's gonna move to the barn then?
The pole barn.
The pole barn.
Which I have
Okay.
in my basement
Right.
in my home right now.
Okay, so she's
we
kind of,
have like 2, 3 like engraving machines that we do, wood cutouts and metal. We can engrave on metal and things like that. So it's like a home business that we go to. We'll do some of the trade shows locally.
so the barn is not just gonna be used for storage, it's actually gonna be for part of your
The-
business?
Correct. And the
Okay.
front is going to be, we're calling it a cabin because there's no water ran to that, obviously.
Right.
So for us, we're calling it a cabin because it's going to be mainly where we can go for our family to be all around. Right now, in my current house, my garage, that's what we do. We all gather in the garage and that's our living room. So the front part will be, like I said, more of like a cabin,
Right.
but
But that's not gonna be part of the home structure, that's gonna be part of the barn structure? Okay.
and that's gonna be more because that little boy needs his own area with him being autistic and needs a sensory room and needs, so we're designing something for him.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anyone else? Questions? All right, why don't you come back up to the podium. Board, do you have any questions? I think the one neighbor was asking about how long the old structure could stand. Do you want to get into that?
One of the conditions is already that it cannot be an income producing
Correct.
residence, so. Now, that's normal.
Yeah.
So. And if her daughter and her grandson do move into there, that would be a second dwelling, so.
If the property was split, it could be 2 parcels and it would still be allowed, correct? If they was 2 acres or 1.7, right?
That could be an option. However, I believe this would need rezoned in order to achieve that.
Split, no, rezone because all the sell-offs already.
Right, I believe it would need to be a 2-lot plat, which, or at least a 1-lot plat, which may trigger a re-subdivision need. Brent, did you do the research on that?
I didn't look at that. I mean, we had talked about that possibly being an option down the road, but she wasn't interested in doing that at this point.
Okay, I assume that.
I think that might be kind of one of the later resorts, just like demolition is
So we
not a
can leave
preferred
it
option.
open for what period of time? Do we need to put a time limit on it? I didn't think so, but if you just left it open, and then if they wanted to, then they could rezone it, do a plot.
My biggest concern was leaving it open-ended of if it wasn't actually occupied by family members. If it was like a storage building, it could wind up being maintenance deferred and become dilapidated essentially. And in that case, to alleviate that concern, having a timeline might make sense. She's already presented that the preference is to actually get family members in there at some point once the existing stuff is out. So my concern is far lessened because of that.
There's nothing that requires us to go to timeline, correct?
Correct. We typically don't with secondary dwelling units.
I would suggest we don't do that then based on her plans.
Any further discussion? Any discussion on the timeline or already been one suggestion, we don't do anything with that about the secondary dwelling unit? Other than keep a family member living there and keep it up in good repair for now?
Yep.
Any further discussion, board? This is a special exception with suggested conditions. We need a motion.
I make a motion that we approve 24 WSC 6 with the suggested conditions.
I think that's C5, isn't it?
Pardon?
I think it's-
Aren't
we on 24
Yes, I'm sorry.
WSC5?
WSC 5 instead of 6.
Thank you. Don't make
It's
it
been moved by Doug, seconded by. Did someone second it?
You get a pick because there was a couple seconds on it.
Pardon?
You get a pick. There was a couple of seconds.
Moved by Doug, seconded by Kelley, that we approve petition 24 WSE 5 filed by Michelle Linsky with the 3 suggested conditions. The special exception is granted as presented. 2, compliance with recommendations of the health department. And 3, in addition to the requirements in the zoning code definition of secondary dwelling unit, the dwelling shall not be used as an income producing rental. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, it's approved 5-0 with all
Thank you
attending
very
members
much.
voting in favor.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next petition is petition 24 WSE 6 filed by Carter and Kathy Wireman, owners of the subject property, who are requesting a special exception approval for a traffic generating home occupation. The proposed is a gunsmithing and firearms sale transfer business at the petitioner's home at 3850 North State Road 109 in section 21 of Thorncreek Township. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we've had a case like this a couple years ago where the federal, where ATF has asked us for input on a federal firearms license, and it's generated a home occupation out of it. So overall, this property is 26.9 acres, zoned to AG agricultural up on 109. Gunsmithing can be done as a home occupation, non-tract generating without any special exception. The idea of potentially having a handful of customers come on site by appointment only throughout the year puts it into traffic generating. In addition, the dealer's license that the ATF has basically says that it is for a retail operation. And when they ask us for zoning compliance, we have to say, well, because your license allows a retail operation, we have to have some sort of zoning that allows for that retail operation, or else we can't say that your license is in compliance with our zoning. So the way we make that connection is, in this case, through the traffic generating home occupation process, because it is home-based, it is small enough to qualify, and it would potentially have a handful of customers. Petitioner can give you more details about the nature of the operation, but it's my understanding that virtually all of the dealing would be not on site whatsoever. There would be definitely no showroom or other traffic besides just those appointments. Let's see, you can see on the screen there, it's approximately 13% of the dwelling area, which is below the maximum of 20%, and general business hours of 8 to 8. However, being by appointment only and basically all enclosed with existing building, it would be very hard to check those hours of operation if someone wanted to. Aerial view, and the property actually extends farther east there off the screen. Closer view, you can see the existing dwelling and detached garage there to the east of the dwelling. And then this is the sketch floor plan that was submitted showing, indicating the area to be used for the business, approximately 15 foot by 15 foot corner of the dwelling. There is sufficient parking for those customers as they come on site. As you can see, there is a relatively large amount of driveway area off the north end of the dwelling. So going to the suggested conditions, these are pretty standard as well for secondary dwelling units. No, these are not standard for those. These are standard for the special exceptions for traffic generating home occupations. That's what we're on. And so I really won't read through those. But again, this is a very, very low intensity use as proposed. So any questions for me?
All right, petitioner, your representative.
Carter Widerman, 3850 North State Road 109, Collin City. Yeah, I'm just petitioning to start an in-home FFL business. It'll be by appointment only, so it's not going to be an open door type thing. I do work a full-time job. This is just kind of a side part-time deal. Gunsmithing is probably more of what I'll be into. Also, that's by appointment only. So that picture's older. That driveway is huge now because I drive semi. I can pull a semi into my driveway now, so there is plenty of parking for people to come and go as they please. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, just kind of a by appointment only. Call me and we'll set something up and get you guys fixed up. And I don't foresee it being a huge operation, money producing operation, but something I've been wanting to do. So.
Okay, questions, board of the petitioner? Questions, board? Anyone here in opposition to this petition? Anyone with opposition? Anyone with questions?
I got a quick question.
Oh, come up to the podium, state your name and address. Have a seat here, Mr. Wireman.
Greg Beck, 160 East, 400 North. And the question is more, does this variance stay with him or does it stay with the property? Meaning if he moves on to a different site, does the variance stay with the property or does it go away?
That doesn't stay with the residents.
Okay.
No, it's directed to the staff. That's correct, right? It goes with the petitioner, right?
To remove any question, condition number 1 is that it would be for the applicant, would not be transferable.
Okay, no, that's fine. Just put a good neighbor all along. We're just worried 10, 15 years down the road where it could leave us or something like that.
It stays with the petitioner. If he moves, it doesn't exist.
No, that's great.
Okay,
Well, thank you.
that's fine. You need to get that answer now. Any other questions, board? Need a motion if you want to move forward.
I move we approve 24 WSE 6 special exception for Carter and Kathy Wireman for the traffic generating home occupation with the 4 suggested conditions listed as presented.
I'd second that.
Moved by Kelley, seconded by Jack, that we approve petition 24 WSE 6 filed by Carter and Kathy Wireman with the 4 suggested conditions that the staff gave us. Any further discussion, questions? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? Okay, 5-0. All attending members voting in favor. The next petition is petition 24 WSE 7 filed by Tamara Gross, owner of the subject property, who is requesting a special exception approval for a secondary dwelling unit on the property located at 4214 West, 500 North in section 1 of Richland Township. The property is currently improved with a dwelling and outbuildings. Staff?
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. So this is a request for another secondary dwelling unit. Overall acreage is 2.64. It's more of a conventional secondary dwelling that we typically see. What's being proposed is to construct a 48 by 30 garage and living quarters for the applicant. The applicant would move into that living quarters. The applicant's child and family would move into the main house then. Long term, the living quarters would be removed and converted to storage, recreation space, garage space, something of that sort. So very typical for what we are, or very similar to what we more typically see. This is again 2024 aerial showing the property. The blue outline is a former parcel line. This is actually a larger parcel than that now, as you'll see in a second. The submitted site plan, which again is proximate, places the proposed building here on the east side of the driveways, kind of in line with the existing outbuilding. Suggested conditions on this one, same as before, that it's granted as presented. Compliance with health department recommendations, again in this case, new septic system, and figuring out whether it'll be able to be used as a joint well or a new well being required, as well as all of the other requirements of the health department, and then the third standard condition as well. Any questions for me?
All right, petitioner, your representative.
Hi, I'm Tamara Gross, at 4214 West 50 North. Let's see, where should I start? My husband and I actually are looking to build like a barn type garage structure that we can move into so that our son and his family can move into our home. My husband's quite ill, and he really can't take care of the property much anymore. So I travel a lot for work. So to be just perfectly frank, I think my husband will probably only live a few more years, and then I'm not sure if I'll stay, and then we'll just, take a bathroom out or take a bedroom out or whatever. So then it will just be another barn for my son's family.
Questions, board, of the petitioner? Any questions, board? Anyone in opposition? Anyone in opposition's petition? Any questions? No opposition. Okay, this is another special exception with the normal suggested conditions for the secondary dwelling unit. We need a motion.
I'll move to approve 24 WSE 7 with the conditions laid out by staff.
There a second?
Second.
It's moved by Joe, seconded by Doug, that we approve petition 24 WSE 7 filed by Tamara Gross with the 3 normal secondary dwelling unit conditions that staff has presented. Any further discussion? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? All right, that too is approved 5-0. With all attending members voting in favor. Anything else to come before the board?
Yes, if you would, bear with me a quick second. We have a complaint that has arisen in the past, since this weekend, about a shooting range that is being operated in the county. It's a commercial shooting range, that's the word I'm trying to think of. Actually, they conduct classes off-site, and then they bring their students over to the shooting range that was apparently established around 2021, kind of quietly back long lane, so it wasn't particularly visible. Complaint arose because neighbors are complaining about shooting going on for 18 hours a day, I think was what one of them said. Not verified yet, but looking into it. The issue is that the zoning code doesn't call out commercial shooting ranges as a use in itself. The only other times that we've dealt with it have been as essentially accessories to other things. So Noah Hilty, his shooting range down there, that was an extension of his campground, lodge, hunting area. We don't regulate shooting or hunting specifically, but the range was kind of lumped in there. Of course, we have personal shooting ranges that are accessory to residential uses all over. And then we have hunting clubs and similar in the municipal areas, but of course not in the county. The only one that I know of in the county that is a dedicated shooting range is the one that's down in Union Township.
700 East.
So, yep, thank you. 700 East, down beside that radio tower, and that's dates from I think the 1990s, so predates the existing code. And I think at the time we did have shooting range in the code as a special exception, or maybe it was even a permitted use. So I bring this to you because it's not listed. We have 2 options. In the IN district, at the very end of the IN district, which is our heavy industrial, intensive use, any use not otherwise listed as a permitted or special exception use in the rest of the zoning code, we can treat as a special exception under that IN use. So this, if we use that, this shooting range would need to get rezoned to heavy industrial and get a special exception. which is pretty heavy duty and could make sense. It's very explicit in the code. The other option, which is what we normally use, is to interpret what's a similar use to a shooting range. So for example, where have I used this before? I'm drawing a blank because it's kind of getting late, but administrative interpretation, so a use that isn't listed is similar to a use that is listed is an option.
Like I was gonna say a recreation.
Right.
Is there a recreation use? Because it seems industrial, that seems a little.
Right. It opens up some questions. Parks and Rec is what Noah Hilty had rezoned to, but as I looked through Parks and Rec, there's nothing even remotely similar there.
What defines commercial? Is it income generating?
It is most definitely income generating. Students pay approximately $200 for a session. So this is definitely commercial. It's definitely
Is the business located there or is it located somewhere else? If you talk about income, where is the income generating? Where is
the classroom area? The owner is located in Allen County and classroom is located in Allen County as well. So the shooting range component of it, other than the people who just rent to go shooting at the range, which is an option, without the classroom component, they would be going from Allen County to Whitley County. Again, as I look at the AG uses, we could call it similar to a kennel, I guess. There's some noise components, landing strip. Those are both special exceptions. Again, it's kind of a stretch. They have up to 20 people, 20 clients or students at a time in each class, plus instructors. So there's a decent amount of traffic being generated. This is why I'm kind of bringing it to you for a gut reaction if something strikes you as comparable, but I was hard pressed to figure it out myself.
The only thing I can think of is like the Conservation Club up at Churubusco, where they do trap and skeet shooting. And that's just, I'm right, they used to open that up for people, but usually they prefer members.
Right. They're behind integrity.
Yeah.
And that,
You always hear
of course, is in Churubusco's jurisdictional area. And for what it's worth, in the municipalities in their A1 agricultural, they do allow for, I think it's shooting range or skeet range or something like that as a special exception. But for whatever reason in the county, that's not in our code.
Can we add it or should we add it?
The Plan Commission and commissioners can add it by amending the text of the code. But right now we're looking at interpretation where this use should fit in, so I know how to pursue it. Tell them, is it a special exception? Does it require rezoning?
I need to go back and look at it.
Well, if it wasn't, I think the whole problem lies is it's a commercial use, right? That it's income generating. And I remember when they put that drive in there and they started putting that, because they hauled material from off-site, they made that road a mess when they were doing it, because they did it right in the spring of the year when the frost was coming out of the ground. And that, because that is a gravel road there too,
So I don't mean to put you too much on the spot. I know I kind of am, but if nothing is really striking you, I think what I will do is state that per the code, it requires a special exception and a rezoning to IN. However, if they wish to appeal it, administrative interpretation, then they can appeal it to you guys for further interpretation.
Is it an ag area?
It's an ag zoning, yes.
It's right there, just east of Tom Hanks'
This
house.
is, and I understand. We have 3 different personal shooting ranges right within us. So I understand the noise. I understand the distractions, everything. I also understand that, us running a combine or a tractor, it makes a lot of noise too. It just seems to go from something zoned ag to IN That's pretty significant, but I don't know what else, without sitting here looking at the code, I don't know whether there's similar use.
Right.
We've discussed it before with gun sales. I think we've asked petitioners if they're gonna go outside and shoot guns. I think that's been discussed
Right. And that's,
with gun sales.
yep, and that's another good example of an accessory use. The little range that's in the backyard or whatever, it's accessory to the gun sales or even the gunsmithing shops. But nothing as a dedicated range as a use in itself.
And
You know, there's no other structure on the property, therefore it can't be accessory to something.
Sure, I'm worried about setting precedent. If you go to that IN district,
well, the biggest problem is they're using it as income generating.
right.
And I've talked with the sheriff's department before because I had a question with them from a person about a shooting range and the hours that they shot. And anything after dusk, you have to have lights. So that, and if they're using an income generating, they're shooting beyond dusk into dark, they have to have lights back there.
Yeah, it's my understanding they aren't doing that. It's just full daylight hours, all day is what the complaint was. Again, 18 hours may have been an exaggeration, but it was all day. So.
How close is that to any other kind of IN district? Is it?
We don't have very many IN districts in the county at all. SDI is one of them.
Closest district would be LR, wouldn't it? Because it's not far from Tri-Lakes.
Yeah.
Could be.
About a mile and a half, 2 miles.
No, the nearest non-ag district, there's a GC because there's a small machine shop or something about a quarter mile farther down the road. So,
Have
So
we
you
got
have-
something in the code about indoor shooting ranges? Because
in-
we've had one, I think, down on the county line, Allen County line at one time inside. What's his name?
There's Parker down there, but.
No,
that's-
next to Wagyu Farm down there, next to Wagyu. Eshelman's, next to Eshelman's. What's the other gentleman down there? Had an inside shooting range just on the county line road.
Was that a business though?
Huh?
Was that a business or was it just his personal?
He run a business there at one time. It's been a business and not a business. Inside that building. It's a neighbor to Eshelman because he's been in here. I forget his name. It's an indoor shooting range.
Sanford?
No,
We'll look into it. How about that?
well, how,
So when you do that, the state code says that we can't treat firearms differently from other similar businesses. Zoning codes, you can call them out separately, so you can kind of treat them differently, but so as an indoor thing, if everything's enclosed and you can't really make any distinction between shooting going on and not, and this is something that's changed in relatively recently.
okay.
So we would, if it came through now, I would say we would need to treat it as basically if it needed approval through you guys, it would be treated basically as a recreation operation or a retail operation, depending.
But I was gonna say, if it's a small business, just like when anybody comes to get a small, I don't want, not a home occupation, but a business approval, couldn't you just position it as that within the AG district instead of making it the IN district?
Right. The reason things are IN with special exception is because nobody wants to rezone to IN. And it's a very high standard to say that it's appropriate. David Quillett apparently was.
That's it.
Had one that
That's
was
Quillett.
either approved or proposed, but he never followed through with it.
Was that it? Never follow? You sure?
I don't know for sure. That's just a comment that was submitted. So,
Oh, someone just submitted, yeah, Quillen. That's it, that's the name. I think he's been in here 2 or 3 times for that property.
could be.
Is there a sense of urgency because to put this through so they can come back to us at the next meeting? Or can we not have the time to research it a little more? Or is it because people are?
Because it's a complaint-based thing, the complaint needs to be taken, action needs to be taken on the complaint. I need to give them, when I send out the complaint, some sort of idea of what the recourse is.
Who owns the property versus who's doing the shooting? Is it the same person?
Same person, yeah. It's his, it's in his name, yeah. Well, the husband and wife, so.
No, we're coming. Not bad, we're coming.
Go ahead.
I'm probably half a mile from those guys. I don't recall them ever shooting at the name of being police, but I understand what the actual neighbor meant. They shoot a lot.
Yeah, the one that gave the most detailed complaint was actually not a next door neighbor. He lives about a half mile farther east from there. So it took me a while to understand what he was complaining about because I couldn't find anything near him because it was, again, a half mile farther west. So I think this discussion has been useful. Heads up that this might be coming to you as a follow-up to a complaint and enforcement action. So the other thing I wanted to remind you guys of is the training session on Monday night, 6 o'clock. It'll be here, and the topic is finally going to be settled to be building code for planning officials. Craig will give kind of a summary of things that you guys probably should know about the building code that apply to the zoning stuff. So every so often, for example, we talk about reducing a side yard setback to less than 5 feet. And I mentioned things, impacts from the building code side of things. Well, hopefully Craig can kind of shed some light what that actually means. And then we talk about on the planning side of stuff, construction design release and how the building commission, state building commission gets involved and so on. So all these things that kind of been talked around, hopefully we can kind of shed some light. And then depending on the weather and depending on availability of sites, we'll actually do a little tour of a home under construction to actually show what we're looking for during an inspection and give you kind of some firsthand knowledge there. So
What time?
6.
This
Yep.
coming Monday.
This coming Monday.
29.
And then you'll
Yes,
take
ma'am.
us all to Dairy Queen afterwards for milkshake.
I think that's, I like that.
You don't ask,
Did
the
you say
answer is
Dairy
no.
Yeah.
Hopefully, Alex.
Milkshakes for everybody.
I am saying, I am neither committing or not committing or confirming nor denying.
In other words, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
We can plug the county line up there to the purple and gray buildings and maybe they can make some for us.
There you go.
Are we ready to adjourn before I get some?
Oh, please.
We're adjourned.